Hi, welcome or welcome back. I hope that you're all doing well, that you're all safe and doing as well as you can. It is July 1st today when I'm filming this. If you're in Canada, happy Canada Day. If you're in the States, happy 4th of July weekend. And if you're not in Canada or the States, if you're celebrating something else, then happy whatever that is. And yeah, I hope that you're all doing well. So it is July 1st, like I said, and that means that I wanted to do a June reading wrap-up. So I want to talk about all the books that I read in June. And I'm excited to talk about these books. I had another really good reading month. I read some really good books. I read 8 books in June, which is the same number that I read in May. But one of those books was a really short story. It was only 17 pages, so I kind of just want to say that I read 7. Because I think short stories can range in terms of how long they are. Well, obviously they can, but I think that something as short as 17 pages is like really on the extreme end of short. But either way, I'm super happy with how many books I read, and it was in the middle of quite a busy month for me, so I'm particularly proud of myself. And the books that I read were generally really good. Some were better than others, of course, and I will get into that. But overall, I read an array of genres, and I didn't, I don't think I disliked any of the books. And there's one book in here that kind of changed my life. Yeah, so I'm really happy that I read that book. So I will get into all of that. I'm going to explain the books that I read and talk about my thoughts. I also just wanted to note that I did set out a plan for June, and I followed that, sort of. I followed it about halfway through, and then I sort of deviated for the other half of the books. And I really decided that I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to set out a strict plan because I know I just won't follow it. So June was the first month where I tried to do that, and it's just clearly not going to really work. I would rather just go from book to book. I would rather pick up a book that I feel like reading in the moment instead of planning it out and following a sort of schedule. Alright, so let's just get started talking about the 8 books that I read in June. So, the first book that I read was The Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman. Now, I did talk about this book in my June TBR video. This is an older book. It's not like one of those books that's recently been hyped up, which is usually what I've been leaning towards. This is a book that I found at a thrift store and just liked the cover and thought that it sounded interesting, so I picked it up. So I read this first in June, and I really enjoyed it. I gave this book 4 stars, so I did like it. So this book is about a lighthouse keeper who falls in love with a girl on the mainland, and then he ends up bringing her to the island where the lighthouse is. And then they have this really happy, secluded life on the lighthouse on the island, and then one day a boat washes up on shore, and there is a dead man in the boat, but there is also an infant child, a girl who is alive, and they decide to keep her. They decide to essentially adopt her, but they pretend like the kid is actually theirs. And then eventually they come to find out that the child's mom is still alive. And so then what ensues is this sort of really intense moral conflict between giving the child back to the mom or keeping her, essentially. And that's the gist of the story. I really liked it because of those morally gray elements, and I liked the setting of the lighthouse and the ocean. There's some really nice descriptions of that kind of thing, and the sort of family aspects of the story I really enjoyed too. Like, it was really heartwarming and sweet. So I really would recommend this book. It's also a movie that I haven't watched yet, but actually I should watch that. From a few years back, and yeah, I would recommend this book. It's I guess sort of just a literary fiction book, but it has some like suspense and that kind of thing. and it is a book that makes you really feel stuff. Okay, so that's the first book I read, and yeah, I was off to a pretty good start. I read that book pretty quickly. I read it I read it outside a lot. I read it on a little fake beach that's here in Ontario, and that was really nice. The next book I read was a thriller. I read The House on the Lake by Riley Sager. This was my first Riley Sager book. I really enjoyed this book as well. I also gave this book 4 stars. It, I would say, is one of the better thrillers that I've read so far. I had a hard time putting it down, and I read it fast, which is what I want in a thriller. So this book is about a actress who goes away to her old family cabin that is on a lake that only has a few houses on it. It's pretty secluded, and I don't want to give too much away, but she starts to first of all, she is dealing with addiction, and if that's something you don't want to read about, then you probably wouldn't like this book, because that is a big part of it. But she's dealing with this, and she is also watching the house across the lake, and she starts to witness things that makes her suspicious, and there are a few characters in the book that you're sort of wondering, like, which ones are good, which ones are bad. There are some plot twists. There are a few plot twists. It's one of those thrillers where at the end there's sort of a lot of twists and different directions that you're going in until you end up at the final sort of destination. And I did not guess the plot twists. Yeah, I wasn't trying very hard. I remember just wanting to be open and going along for the ride, but I didn't find it predictable. And in the end, something that I really didn't see coming is what happened. So, I really love Riley Sager's writing after reading this book, and I would highly recommend this if you are okay with reading about alcoholism and addiction. I highly recommend this book if you like thrillers. It's also a very good thriller, I think, for the summer because of the setting. And yeah, now I'm going to read more of Riley Sager's books. I picked up one the other day. His new one, The Only One Left. I'm looking at my bookshelf because it's up there. The Only One Left. I'm going to read that really soon, I think. So that was I was on a roll at the beginning of June. Another good book. What did I read next? Then I read a book on my Kindle. which, as you can see, I have decorated. I'm still waiting on one sticker for this spot, but I have mostly Outlander stickers, and I also have some, I have Howl's Moving Castle, Ponyo, and just a general Studio Ghibli sticker. I'm really happy with, oh, and I also have this pop socket. And it has glitter that actually moves. So I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I'm kind of regretting not getting a clear case and putting the stickers on that, but I like the feel of the Kindle without a case on it. I like the thinness of it. So yeah, I'm still happy with it. I'm waiting on one sticker, which is I'll show it another time, but yeah, I don't know, I'm using this as sort of a opportunity to be a fangirl, because normally I don't sort of show off, loving Outlander or Studio Ghibli, but I feel like this is an appropriate place to do it. So, yeah, I read a book on here next. I read another thriller, called Run on Red, and I can't remember the author's name, so I'm gonna have to put it on the screen, but I read that on here because it was on Kindle Unlimited, I believe, and that was an interesting experience for me reading that book, because it was like the first book that I really got into on my Kindle, so that part was fun. Like, I read it really quickly. I find, like some other people, that I'm a bit quicker reading on my Kindle than reading a physical book. And I read the book quickly. I was pretty into it, but it was one of those books where, like, I finished it and I took a minute to actually think about it, and then I ended up only giving it 3 stars because it was a little bit different than I expected. The book is about these 2 girls who I believe are in high school, it might be college, and they are driving to this party that is like in the woods, sort of in the middle of nowhere, and they're driving, and then they discover that there's a vehicle following them, and so they get freaked out. And our main character, she has a lot of anxiety, And so, and the whole book is from her perspective, I think. And so you get a lot of that kind of thing. Her dealing with her anxiety and then being in this really anxiety-inducing situation. And she's sort of like questioning herself a lot and wondering if she's overreacting and that kind of thing. But from the point where they finally decide, okay, this vehicle is following us, then it just goes off the rails. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on, a lot of crazy stuff that happens. It is very fast-paced, and it's just generally like a very scary book. Like, the way that it's described, it's nighttime. The sort of bad guys in the book, they're pretty like I felt pretty scared, and it ends up going down a road that's kind of disturbing in terms of what it's trying to say. I'm trying not to give too much away, but I don't know. I would recommend reading the book if you want just a really fun thriller that you're probably not going to think about again, and that will kind of make your heart rate go up and you might feel a little scared. I was expecting more of a drawn out, I expected the whole book to be about in the context of them driving and being followed, but that part ends quite early. So, I don't know, I thought the concept of being followed reminded me of sort of a Twilight Zone episode, and I was excited for like the whole book to be that, but that's not what it is. So, yeah, but if it sounds interesting, I know I didn't really explain much of it, but I don't know, like if you want that sort of dark horror movie feeling, then I think that you might want to read this. Okay, then what did I read? I believe then I read one of my new favorite books, and that is Mary Jane, and this is by Jessica Anya Blau. This is I was excited to read this during the summer. Obviously, it looks very summery, and it's based in the summertime. I gave this book 5 stars. I loved it. This is a very character-driven book. It's not really about the plot, but just about the characters, and particularly the main character and her journey. It's about her who, she becomes a babysitter for a little girl. I wish I could remember her name. But, she becomes her babysitter for the summer, and she she comes from our main character, Mary Jane. Mary Jane comes from a very conservative family, religious, I believe Christian family, and this is based in the 70s, and she goes to, and then she ends up really connecting with the girl that she's babysitting and her parents. And also these two celebrities who come to, one is an actress and one is a musician. And they are together and they come to the house where the girl is babysitting. I'm having a hard time forming sentences. But the musician who comes, he's dealing with addiction, and let me just try to find the girl's name, Izzy. So the young girl who Mary Jane is babysitting is named Izzy, and Izzy's dad is a psychologist. And so the reason that this famous couple comes is that the guy is dealing with addiction and he's getting treated by Izzy's dad. And long story short, she realizes how different they are from her actual parents, and she kind of finds herself connecting with this new family a lot more. And it is just so wholesome. This book is so sweet and just fun. It deals with important stuff, but in a way that's still like really fun throughout the whole thing and entertaining. And the little girl Izzy, the way that she's described in this book is just like, she's one of my favorite characters I've ever read about. She's like just the classic funny, adorable little girl. And yeah, one of my favorite books, one of my favorite characters. I loved all of the characters, really. And it's all from the point of view of Mary Jane, and so you really, because it's so character driven, you really find yourself connecting to her. And yeah, it's also pretty short, and the font size is really big, so I really like that. Yeah, so highly recommend reading this. It's, yeah, a new favorite for sure. So cute. Okay. Then I read a book that I borrowed from the library, and I haven't bought my own copy. I think I might one day, but I'm not in a rush to. And that book was The Night Circus by Aaron something. I'm gonna have to put it on the screen. But The Night Circus is a bit older now, but it's a really popular fantasy book. It is about a circus that only comes at night, which is why it's called the Night Circus. And it is called the Circus of Dreams, but it is in French, so it's Le Cirque de Rêve. Something like that. And people love that book. It's like, it has a cult following. I think it's a very atmospheric fantasy. A lot of it is about the setting, about immersing yourself in this world, this circus, and it's very, very magical. The circus is actually, so it's presented to the public as magicians sort of doing tricks and, really amazing acrobats doing amazing stunts and that kind of thing, but what the public doesn't know is that everyone involved in the circus actually can do real magic. So it's all actually real. And you know that as the reader because you are seeing various points of view from all the different people involved in the circus, but you're also getting the point of view of someone who is not part of it but becomes part of it. So you get the perspective of a lot of different characters, and it also does a lot of time jumping. And it's from the 1800s, and early 1900s. So, people really, really, really love this book, especially if you're into fantasy, but I didn't absolutely love it. I gave it 4 stars, but actually I think I'd give it 4.5 stars, because I did really like it, but the fact that it time jumped a lot and that it used a lot of different perspectives, and that it described the setting a ton, like that's probably like 80% of it, like just describing the circus. So just personally, I don't do well with those kind of books, so, but I still gave it such a high rating because I did really appreciate it, and I did like the writing. It's very beautiful and lyrical, and I do like that kind of writing, but there were just certain elements of it that held me back from really loving it. So I will say that the ending I really loved. I really think that the book is worth reading just for like this sort of love story. There is like a romance subplot, and it's really wholesome in the end with different characters, and I do recommend it. I recommend reading it if you're someone who likes to match what you're reading to the season. I think this would be a really good book to read in the fall or even the winter. yeah, I almost feel like it's more of a winter book. But, yeah, The Night Circus, still really loved it, really liked it. Yeah, then, and I'm glad I finally read it because it's been on my TBR for a long time. And I might read her other books. I might read The Starless Sea, but I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I just need to think more about how likely it is that I'll like that book. Then, okay. Now, I need to talk about the book that I said changed my life. And I'm not sure. I don't even know how to talk about this book. But I'm gonna try. So, I read My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. So, I don't actually recommend reading this book unless, okay, this book is about a 15-year-old girl who goes away to this sort of special school for high school. It's like she moves away from home, and she has this English class, and she is groomed by the professor and sexually abused and emotionally abused by him. And that's what the whole book is about. It's about this happening to her, and it time jumps to the present. So I'd say about 3/4 of it is in the past when this is happening to her, and then the other quarter of it is in the future when she is in therapy and she is dealing with similar stories coming out, sort of with the Me Too movement. And yeah, so most of it is based in the past when the abuse was going on. And I just have never seen this kind of thing told in such an authentic way, in such a genuine way that doesn't hide at all from the darkness. It doesn't hide away from the truth of what this experience is like. And for that reason, I would recommend reading it. Like, I wish that everyone would actually read this book. Unless you have dealt with it yourself or something similar. Because in that case, this book is very triggering. It caused me to think so much. And, like, not in a good way, like in a bad way. So, If I hadn't read this book, then I would have gone my whole life without reading this account of, and this is fiction, but like, it is told in a way that feels like reality and feels like, yeah. So it's so complicated because it was so triggering but so beneficial, because the way this character is told, and even like, it's just, I've never resonated with a character so much. It felt like me at various points. It felt like it's really hard to explain, but it felt like this is the book that I have resonated with the most by far, and I don't expect to resonate with another book more, ever. So I'm glad I read it, but it is very triggering, and so please, 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 if you're going to read this, look into it beforehand. And if you do pick it up and start reading it, and you think, I can't read this kind of thing, then stop. I did actually borrow it from the library for that reason, because I didn't know if I would be able to read it. But then I found it so beneficial to me personally that I obviously finished it, and then I ended up buying it. So this book just really depicts this kind of thing really, really well. Maybe there are books out there that do it even better, but this is the one that's done it the best for me. And it really shows the psychological effects of grooming and sexual abuse and emotional abuse. So, and just like the way, what this book does really well is just the gray areas and this kind of thing, and this kind of situation, and how it's not straightforward. There isn't one single way to cope and experience abuse, and this book really shows that, and so that's why I think it's important too. Okay. So that was like a very heavy, life-altering book that I read, and then I switched to a lighter book. I finally read a book that I've been meaning to read for a while, and that is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So, I read this book mainly so that I could be introduced to characters that are in Carrie Soto's Back. I'm going to read that book soon. And this one is about a family who is famous for different reasons. Different people in the family are famous, and there's 4 of them, I think, 4 siblings, and their dad, who is a famous musician, McRiva, who's a character that shows up in a bunch of Taylor Jenkins Reid books, maybe all of them, I'm not sure, I haven't read them all yet, but he's a pretty bad dude, and he runs off, he leaves them. The oldest daughter, she's like raises the family, basically acts as the mother, and then in present day, it goes back in time to show us that sort of thing. And in present day, they're having a big annual party, and there are a bunch of people there, and it gets kind of crazy. And then McRiva, the dad, shows up at this party as well, and yeah, that's all I'll say. So the whole book is sort of about family, and it deals with a lot of stuff. It deals with, there's some romance, but because, like, it's dealing with a whole bunch of characters, and it constantly flips back and forth between a bunch of different characters, it's a little bit hard to connect to people, to the characters, and so I didn't really enjoy this book. Like, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. I liked parts of it, and it was based on a beach. It is summery. The characters surf, and I love surfing. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I liked that. But I found just the fact that it was jumping around a lot in point of view that I just didn't get really connected. So I gave it 3 stars, which is pretty low for me, for Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I did, and I'd still recommend it if you're just looking for a fun summer read, but there are better ones. However, if you're planning on reading Carrie Soto is back, you might want to read this like I did, but I'm not sure how important it is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Malibu Rising is one of her best books. Yeah, I've read Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six, and those 2 are definitely better. Alright. Then the last book, I guess this is the last book, is that short story, that really quick short story, which is The Yellow Wallpaper, by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So this is like a classic short story. It is supposed to be horror, I think. It is about a woman who is married to this guy who I don't even totally remember the story, like what it's about. I just know it's like about a woman who is sort of restricted, and it's a very feminist book. It is about a woman who is slowly sort of going crazy, but she's like really gaslit by her husband, and basically locked in this room with yellow wallpaper, and she slowly goes mad, goes crazy. But it's like in a way where it's like you're rooting for her, and you're like, yeah, like, hell yeah, go crazy. That kind of thing. So, it's only 17 pages. It's really short. I kind of regret buying it because I don't think I needed a physical copy of it. And I expected to like it more than I did. I think I gave it 4 stars, but it's hard to like rate because I understand what it was trying to do, and I like the sentiment behind it, but I didn't find it as like scary as I thought I would. I thought it would be a fun horror, but I didn't really get that from it. I wasn't even really like creeped out or anything. So I don't know. It's I feel like it's one of those books that like you should read, but you don't need to buy it unless you like. I'm not telling you what to do, but like, I don't consider it a really important book for me. But I do think that everyone should read it. It's really quick, and it's a really good commentary sort of on gender roles and sexism. So, yeah. The Yellow Wallpaper. And I guess that's my last book. It doesn't feel like it because I've already started another book and I'm almost done it. But I really did have a good reading month in June. I feel really excited to read the books that I have. I also took advantage of Stuff My Kindle Day yesterday, and I downloaded a bunch of books on my Kindle. I have a lot of books now to read, so I'm probably gonna really try not to buy any for a few months, because I think I'm covered for a few months. So yeah, but I'm super excited. I'm pretty into reading on my Kindle now, and that's really fun. It's fun to be able to comfortably lay in bed and read at night with that. It's fun to be able to take that with me easily places. I'm still enjoying checking out the used bookstore that I mentioned before in my city, and going to the library. But I have enough books for a while, so yeah. I hope that this was interesting if you listened, or just relaxing, and maybe helped you fall asleep. So also, if you read anything this month that you want to share, please do so in the comments. And yeah, thank you, and I will see you in the next video.